Greetings. Welcome to A Crohn's Disease Life. My name is Michael Weiss, and I'm the host of this podcast. While I have Crohn's disease, which is a chronic incurable autoimmune illness, this podcast focuses on all sorts of chronic illnesses and the challenge that folks like us deal with in loving, laughing, and living. Dealing with hospitals, dealing with bills, dealing with leaving the hospital, dealing with preparing for the hospital, dealing with doctors, etc., etc. And for those of you who may not remember, my qualifications are that I've been suffering from Crohn's disease for approximately 25 years. I'm 47. I've been hospitalized over 150 times in maybe 6 or 7 states, and I do have some favorites in there. And I actually wrote a book about my experiences called Confessions of a Professional Hospital Patient, and it's a funny, real-life sort of day-in-the-life account of what it's like to be a hospital patient minute by minute. So you could check it out on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, or on my site, which is hospitalpatient.com. But the topic for today's show is to recommend a book. And normally I don't just dedicate the show to one topic like that, but this book is so extraordinary for people like us that I feel like I must. The name of the book is called Critical Conditions, The Essential Hospital Guide to Get Your Loved One Out Alive. And it's by a writer named Martine Ehrenclou. That's E-H-R-E-N-C-L-U-E. Now, what Martine has done here is she has taken a different approach. She wasn't the patient so much, it was her loved ones. And she learned so much about what she can do as a caretaker to help her loved ones experience in the hospital that she wrote a book that is so cleverly broken down into chapters with subtitles. It's a reference guide. It's the ultimate reference guide for being a hospital patient, whether you're going in as the patient, whether you're a loved one or a friend. It's a fantastic gift. I think hospital bookstores, after they stock my book, I think they should take Martine's book. It's actually, it's sort of like two sides of the same coin. Mine's sort of, from the patient's perspective. Hers is for the patient's perspective, which I think is quite interesting. And I actually told Martine that her book was so accurate that I had a hard time reading it at times because it reminded me so much of so many experiences, good and bad. But it was I guess a backhanded compliment, but a major compliment, because so many books, they get some of the experience but not all of it. She nailed it here. She's written chapters on the importance of being a patient advocate, which, by the way, is sort of a running theme in the book. How to deal with nurses. And she doesn't just talk about the generic nurse. She breaks it down into the primary nurse, the nurse who's sort of the head floor nurse, the supervising nurse, nurses with bad attitudes, nurses with good attitudes, how to thank them, etc. Private nurses, how to hire them, how much they are, etc. And if you can't afford a private nurse, maybe you and the other patient in the room can chip in. I mean, all these sort of progressive approaches, which is why her book is great. Also, getting attention in the hospital. How does your loved one get the proper attention in the hospital? Because let's face it, there is a shortage of nurses in the hospital, and unfortunately nurses, who I believe are the glue to the healthcare system, they're overworked. They have too many patients. So very, very important. Also, she talks about what it's like to be a caretaker. I'm always reminded of the story when you're in an airplane and they give you all the directions at the beginning, and they say if you have a baby, your instinct is to put the mask on the baby, the oxygen mask, but no. You put the mask on yourself, then you put it on the baby, because if you aren't okay, you can't be a caretaker. And I think Martine addresses that, why it's so important for the caretaker to keep his or her sanity so they can continue being the caretaker. She talks about discharge planning and aftercare. And by the way, her book is based on, I think, over 150 interviews with practicing nurses, doctors, social workers, patients, and the chapters are set up in such a way that there are different family stories, nurses' stories, doctor stories, interspersed with all of her information. So it's a really cool read, and it's sort of designed that you don't have to read the whole thing in one sitting. And just to sort of go over that again, the table of contents is set up so that if you have an issue, you could quickly go to it, find it, get an answer. She also has in her chapters, for example, and this is about being a patient advocate, she has bullet points of different aspects of being a patient advocate, because people want different information. Not everything applies to everyone in the same way, and I think Martine accounts for that. She has a glossary in here, so you can feel as educated as the people who you're speaking to. And maybe most importantly, she has a section here where you could actually use this book to write in daily progress notes. What I spoke about with the primary nurse, what I spoke about with the doctor, what are the questions I want to ask, etc., etc. It's an excellent book. And also the title, when it says critical conditions, you shouldn't be put off by such an aggressive title, because this may be one of the most positive books about hospital care that I've ever read, because it's very appreciative of what nurses and doctors do, and it actually tries to train the patient to do things the right way so that nurses and doctors can be as effective as possible. So I highly recommend this book after you buy my book, that is. So Martine's book can be found at all of the major bookstores, Amazon, Barnes & Noble, etc. But also she has a Facebook page, facebook.com/Critical Conditions Book, and also her Twitter account is med_writer, WRITER. As for myself, you could always contact me on hospitalpatient.com, and my Twitter address is just hospitalpatient, one word. And I look forward to hearing from you, and please subscribe to the podcast, tell your friends about it, and send me emails, because I would love to talk about research and address various issues that are important to you. And again, Critical Conditions, How to Get Your Loved One Out of the Hospital Alive, a very positive book about getting the best patient care possible in the hospital. Buy it. You will not regret it. It's something you can use over. I hope you don't have to use it over and over again, but you can, and you could tell your friends about it. And I get nothing from this other than helping you, and that would be my pleasure. So it's a great book. I congratulate Martine on it, and thank you for watching.